It's 6:30, and we're calling this meeting to order. We're here for a work session to discuss the proposed fiscal year 2018 budget. And I would like everyone to know that Mr. Peterson indicated earlier that he had a prior commitment and wasn't able to be with us tonight. Other than that, we have all of the rest of council, and my understanding is there was one request to speak quickly, but clearly we all want to get all of the good information. So
I think it was as fast as you can.
City Manager Humble.
All right, Mayor and Council, we appreciate your time this evening. One of the really points to tonight's meeting is to answer any of the questions that you may have. Last Tuesday night when I presented the budget to you, I gave a rather detailed overview from a holistic standpoint. So what we'd like to do is run through the funds and give you the high points. If there are any questions that you have, we certainly want to answer them. Staff has joined us at the table this evening. We are prepared to answer any of your questions on any of the items you have. We do have short presentations on a few of the items in the Innovation Fund. So I want to save the Innovation Fund until last and get through the other funds, because I suspect that they will be fairly easy and straightforward. The Innovation one is really the investment piece for next year, tied back to the strategic elements that is noted in the budget. So with that, very quickly, I always like to start at the beginning of the conversation and just acknowledge that the budget really is tied back to the adoption of the comprehensive plan that happened since you adopted the 2017 budget. Over the summer at your retreat, you created a vision and a mission statement and identified focus areas and a priority list of our priorities. From that, we are going to be building a multi-year work plan, and staff will be doing that at the end of September. So we will ask you to have a workshop with us, probably one Tuesday evening, or depending on the challenge we come up with, a Saturday in October, because we're going to do our very best to prioritize what we believe we can handle based on capacity, but we're just a recommendation. Y'all actually need to vote from a policy perspective and make sure that we prioritized your list of priorities correctly, because I anticipate we will not be able to get to all of the things we can all mutually agree on need to be done as quickly as possible. So it will be prioritizing the priorities. Just for context, we have identified several challenges that we know we need to address moving forward. The first one is that 41% of the revenue in the general fund is generated from sales tax. We all know that that is based on consumer confidence. And that's great when confidence is up. It's fairly scary when it's down. Less than a third of the revenue in the general fund comes from property taxes, which is really the most stable source of revenue that we have. So I've noted in the budget that really we need to diversify our dependence on sales tax and grow property tax valuations through development and annexation so we can maintain current infrastructure while building new. And really that's the economic development component that we all know is important to the future of our community. Over the course of the summer, Tracy in her presentations, myself in the budget workshops that we've been doing, have really focused on not only are we dependent on sales tax, but we find ourselves in a situation where sales tax is flat and has the potential to decline. And the challenge that we have is wonderful for our neighbors, both Elgin and Smithfield, particularly Elgin. And the mayor and I have both commented every meeting we go where Elgin is present and they ask for a report on what's going on in the city. They just talk forever. I mean, we really want to say, okay, enough already. We got it, y'all growing, and we're proud for you. But what that does is create an opportunity for Elgin and Smithfield to have opportunities to shop at home and not come to the city of Bastrop. So we've recognized that tourism offers us an opportunity to have new money come into town via our tourists and shop here in Bastrop. And so we recognize that the Hyatt Lost Pines Resort provides us a real opportunity for a number of the conventions that come to their hotel to bring the excursions to town. We also recognize that we have an opportunity for a lot of day travel, weekend trips. Bastrop is super convenient to a lot of places and has so much to offer. And we also recognize that we need some curb appeal with some sitting spots. So folks want to come and stay in Bastrop. So we see that really as the community development piece of this. So when you tie all of that back to some of the survey data that was in the comprehensive plan, in the budget that we presented to you, chart 10 on page 12 is, in my opinion, the most important chart in the whole budget. We worked to ensure that all of the items in this budget were under one of the focus areas that you identified were critical to ensuring that the vision and the mission of the organization were met. So for those watching at home, this budget has been uploaded onto our website, and I would encourage you to review that. From a general fund perspective, there are really a couple of things worth noting. One of the issues that has come from our analysis this year, and really is a continuation of work that was done last year, was that our building fees have not been raised since 1995. In June, Wesley put together a presentation and really, I think, waged a very compelling discussion for changing our rates. The building code that was in effect when the rates were adopted was a 1991 standard that's now defunct. And we have moved on to international building codes that are of circa 2009. Way more detailed, way more inspections, way more involvement on the part of staff, and the revenue that we receive does not cover the service. In addition, Wesley and his team determined that there are a number of things that we provide as services that our master fee schedule does not charge for. So included in this budget is the expectation that we will raise building fees. That is also in line with a priority that you set, and that priority was that our cost would be recovered through the corresponding fee. You will see when Tracy brings our financial policies to you and we adopt those annually as a part of our budget process, that there will be an amendment this year in the financial policy, making that an expectation that in future years all of our fees will need to be reviewed and ensure that they do indeed cover the service unless we have received policy direction for a level of subsidy on the part of council. The budget also includes salary increases for the last 6 years. Council has funded 2 salary surveys or comprehensive salary studies that have been done. And I think that is such a testament to this community and the quality of people that you've been able to attract and retain. I would remind you of the council orientation that you went through in May, and one of the more impressive statistics that Tanya was able to share was our turnover rate is somewhere in the neighborhood of about 5.5 or 6% as an organization, and that's just unheard of. I think that speaks volumes to how well this community and council has taken care of their employees, and that certainly speaks to the quality of service that we can provide and continue to provide. There is also insurance increase built into the budget. We've made some plan modifications, and essentially the increase is about 11%. We were given an extremely high rate increase and recognized that that was absolutely unacceptable, particularly given the quality of history in the form of claims that this organization has had year in and year out. That should count for something. So our benefits coordinator that we have, IPS, went back and worked diligently, not once, but I believe 3 times, and finally have been able to get this to, is it 9% or 11%? 9%. Since I have presented this, they've come back one more time, and I think it's down to 9%. So a real testament to IPS and their partnership with the city of Bastrop. I also really want to give a shout out to our employees because our workers' compensation decreased $27,000 this year. And the only way workers' comp goes down is if claims go down. And that's a real testament to the focus on safety that our directors and our employees focus on. There are several new positions included in the general fund, and they are all critically important and tie back to the focus areas that you've identified for us. The first one is the Director of Planning and Zoning. I have been here going on now 5 months, and I have jokingly said, and it's really not a joke, I have a work plan sufficient for the next decade, and I've only been here about 4 months. And a big chunk of that is tied up in not only the development side relative to zoning and the actual build cycle that happens from developing the land for subdivisions and the building piece, but what goes into managing the infrastructure, the engineering piece of this. And very early on, I sat down with Wesley, and it didn't take long for him to go through his to-do list. And he's got more work than I do. And it's just unreasonable to expect that Wesley can do city engineering and be Director of Planning and Zoning and be successful at either. And so we are including the Director of Planning and Zoning so that we have somebody that can come in and focus on our subdivision ordinance that I don't believe has been updated since the 80s. We have some zoning ordinances that just periodically you need to tweak them. I mean, every so often it's important to review your zoning ordinance, particularly in light of our comprehensive plan update. Anytime you have a significant update of your comprehensive plan, which we have, then you really have to bring your processes and your ordinances and the regulatory environment to match that plan. And so it's just time to do that. Wesley has our capital improvement program that we're going to be talking about in the fall. We're just shy of having to start participating in stormwater management. We have our drainage fund potentially coming online. We've got a drainage study. And when you begin to look at all of the work tied to that, not to mention that he has a role to play in the development review process, he's got a full-time job and then some. So it just makes sense at this point in time that since our number one focus is economic development and community development, that we have capacity in both engineering and planning and zoning to make that happen. The second position is Assistant Public Works Director. And as y'all are aware, it is a daunting task to have operational responsibility as well as strategic responsibility. And essentially, Trey, in the capacity of Director of Public Works, has both of those. And with all of the challenges that we have maintaining the infrastructure we have and growing this community, we need some depth in the organization. So an Assistant Public Works Director coming in will help with the operational piece. Councilmember Schiff during the retreat kept emphasizing efficiency. And efficiency comes from good processes and good continuous improvement. And that really is something that Trey and I agree that the Assistant Director of Public Works would be able to provide us. It's a much needed depth so that Trey can be focused on not only the operational elements, but have capacity to focus strategically as well. The next position is an IT, Information Technology Systems Administrator. And Andreas loves this. Police and fire don't. But in my opinion, the number one public safety priority that we have any day of the week is information technology, period, end of story. And the reason for that is that the police are extraordinarily dependent on technology to function today. Just like we are dependent on technology to receive calls for service, whether it's from the telephone or via email. We are just a technological society. And we have a tremendous number of electronic mechanisms, whether it's network, fiber, switches, computers, software, and it is just daunting to expect Andreas and half of Colin to be able to continue to manage our system and do it well and deliver the 99.9% functionality that we expect. So we have included an IT systems administrator that's full-time to work with Andreas so that we can begin to ensure as we grow that we have the infrastructure not only in the way of equipment but in human resources to actually manage that. One of the focus areas that you were very, very, very clear about is the need for us to better communicate our story. And so Colin is half-time in IT and half-time in film and broadcast. And so we are going to fund Colin full-time in film and broadcasting with the expectation that we will start doing a regular television program. We will be able to do more videos specific to a topic. We are talking about ways that we can produce little quick videos on information weekly so that we can keep everybody up to date as need be. We do appreciate that not all of our citizenry are on Facebook. They may or may not have cable, and that a segment of our population still likes a newsletter and still reads what's in the utility bill. So we will be doing some kind of written newsletter informing the citizens as well. And so we're asking that that position be full-time as well. We talked about this also at the last council meeting as well as during the new council orientation. Our judge, Charlotte Hides, works 7 days a week, and she has been a faithful public servant for a number of years and does a great job. But that is an awesome responsibility to have 7 days a week, 365 days a year. And so we have put resources in the budget for associate judge that would be a contract employee that would only be paid when used. At your council meeting on the 22nd next week, we have a work session item, and we're going to bring you a request for qualifications for hiring an associate judge and a timeline, because that is your employee. And so you would be involved in that process as well. So those are the items of significance in the general fund. All other things stay equal. If it was funded this year, it's funded again next year. So are there any questions in the general fund based on that that you have at this time? Yes, sir.
Can you tell me how many salary increases the staff has had? Say the last 4 or 5 years?
For the last 6 years, there have been salary increases based on the salary survey and the salary study that has been conducted. And I think there's been 2 salary studies conducted, and they've been funded, and as a result of that, we've maintained our competitiveness.
Great. Okay. And the associate judge, will that be you probably said this, but I didn't catch it, a part-time position or full-time?
It will be contract. It will be a part-time, but it will be treated as a consultant. They will be responsible for all of the taxes and so forth, and it will be paid on a fee basis. If the judge doesn't schedule them, they don't get paid. So what that's going to do is allow the presiding judge the flexibility to schedule her time, as well as the associate judge, so that she can work an appropriate 40-hour-a-week schedule. And The recommendation would be, in my opinion, is for you to hire several associate judges and put them on a routine rotation so that they work every other weekend. And then when Judge Hides takes a vacation or has to go to training, then they would replace her on the bench during that time. But she would be in charge of scheduling that.
Okay, thank you.
If there are no other questions, I will move to Water Wastewater Fund. This is a fund that we spent quite a bit of time on at the end of July. And we indicated to you that this is a fund that has some significant capital improvements that are necessary. And these are necessary really for our continued use of water and wastewater, but they also provide expansion capacity. The TCEQ has a standard that says that 65% of your capacity you need to be in design of a plant. Contractually, we're at about 70. And by 95%, your plant needs to be built and operational. We currently have a wastewater treatment plant that's been operational and it runs nonstop. And it is in need of some maintenance that we've already identified. And that's challenging because it needs to be taken offline to be maintained, and we don't have any other option. So the question before us is, do we renovate and maintain two systems, or do we upsize the facility that needs to be built at State Highway 304 and change the process? The life cycle of wastewater is expensive. Short-term, one option might look cheaper, but long-term maintenance cost, it might be more expensive. And because we don't have the capacity to make the appropriate decision for ratepayers, we indicated to you that we were hiring a consulting firm to come in and do a biological study to study what I think you call the heebie-jeebies in the wastewater treatment plant, and tell us whether or not we needed to invest in our current plant or take it offline and upsize the size of a new plant. And what we've asked them to do is evaluate that, but more importantly, give us a life cycle cost analysis so that we can bring you important information on which to make an informed decision. Because this impacts our ratepayers for the next 30 to 40 years. I mean, we're signing up to be married with this infrastructure a very long time. Recognizing that that's important and recognizing that we don't have that, we have indicated to you that we would like to postpone the conversation on water wastewater until the fall. We anticipate in the next 45 days that we'll have the results of the study, and we'll be able to engage our rate consultant then to do the work necessary to come back to you with a thoughtful presentation to make decisions that will essentially have to last for 30 years. So what you are being asked to adopt in the Water Wastewater Fund is essentially the same rates that we have now, the same budget that we have now, but for one position. There is capacity in the Water Wastewater Fund today, and we need to add a foreman. Because one of the things that I think you appreciate from all of the presentations that we've made is we're in an either-or situation. We can either do streets or we can do drainage. We can either do parks or we can do water. But what we can't do is have somebody dedicated to water, somebody dedicated to drainage. And we're beginning to work toward that so we can put some much-needed capacity in the system. With the drainage fund coming on board, our foreman in the street department can't do streets, drainage, and water wastewater. So the water fund now needs a foreman it pays for, and then that allows the general fund to take care of its services, and there will be, with time, once we figure out how much of David's time is required to manage the drainage fund, we'll adjust that allocation in future years. We do not have the drainage fund today reimbursing the general fund for any of David's time because we just don't have a clue how much time it's going to take. But we'll talk about that next year with good information. So that, in essence, is the Water Wastewater Fund. And if there are no questions, I will move on to...
David?
David Juarez is the foreman in the street department. He's the gentleman that drives the truck when we're in the parade. Does a great job. Very dedicated, very, very good at what he does, and very conscientious. But we have a responsibility to set David up for success. And we ask an awful lot of David, just like we do of Trey every day. And
so we're basically going to be adopting a placeholding amount.
Yes, that's
even
right.
Though we won't be specifying that till the fall.
Yes, the numbers that you will adopt have that position in it.
Okay.
So that will allow us in October 1, but that position does not impact the rates at this point. The capital will be what impacts the rates. If there are no other questions, then we'll move to BP&L. BP&L continues to function at a very healthy level. I have said this on numerous occasions. I think Curtis Irwin and his team do a masterful job of managing our system. Curtis is as conscientious of that system as anybody I have ever seen, and I think that's why we all have come to expect that we will never have anything more than a 10-minute outage. That's a wonderful expectation to have. But it comes from a well-funded maintenance plan, a commitment to maintenance. Curtis is very, very committed to working with LCRA to do a review of our system and to fund the needed capital, and he does that on a 5-year basis to ensure that our system is always maintained at a very high level of reliability. And so all of the things that continue to make our system work are here. In addition to that, the BP&L has a fund balance requirement of about 35%, and at the end of this fiscal year, it's at 56.4. So there is some excess fund balance that we believe that could be important enhancements to our economic development and community development goals that we identified earlier. One is the River of Lights, which would be funding Christmas lights on Main Street and in the park. The hotel occupancy tax, its goal is heads and beds, and I'm very pleased with the work that Visit Bastrop, the Main Street Board, and a lot of our downtown merchants are doing with our Lost Pines Christmas, and they've put together, I think, a very robust program so that every week through the Christmas season there is something here in Bastrop to do, but you kind of expect Christmas lights. So we are every year want to make an investment in the Christmas lights so that it becomes something that people are willing to drive for. So we've got $125,000 in there this year. We recognize that there are several community festivals that are better served by being community sponsored instead of sponsored by the hotel occupancy tax, because they just really don't fit. And at the end of the day, we're going to do them anyway. And we have identified Patriotic Festival. We're going to celebrate July 4th. The Christmas lights, Juneteenth is one. And after visiting with staff, I anticipate that before we ask you to adopt the budget, that the homecoming will probably be funded out of the community support. We are in the process of really analyzing the use of hotel occupancy tax to ensure that we are leveraging that fund to the extent possible to ensure that we have sales tax. And after spending considerable time with Sarah and Dale and the finance team, I think that that's going to be our recommendation. Just for everybody that is anxious about are they going to fund or are they not. Letters went out today. If not today, they'll be going out tomorrow to all of the people that get hot funds, and I'm going to talk about it here even though I'm not under hotel occupancy tax. that says we have earmarked about $225,000, and staff over the course of the next several weeks are going to meet with each one of our applicants individually and set them up for success, review what's allowed, what's not allowed, educate them, and figure out a way to set them up for success instead of taking a one-size-fits-all approach, because we are having difficulty enforcing our own rules. They're having a difficult time in following our rules. And so I want to say that this is kind of an interim measure as Visit Bastrop gets up and operational, as the comprehensive plan indicated the cultural arts is going to be doing a master plan. Once that's developed, we're going to have so much more information as we get through the year. So we'll be back with a more formal program, but we are going to work with each of those. But I digress. But the community festival events are going to be Patriotic Festival, July 4th and Juneteenth, and most likely the homecoming. The community support funding, I detailed all of that out in the budget. There is a list as well as the rationale for funding. Everybody that received funding, for the most part, got what they had last year. If they had applied last year and we had a history of it. Several did not get funding. I stated my reasons in the memo. One we funded at full tilt, and the reason for that is it was specific to equipment, and that was the Bastrop County First Responders. That is a group of individuals that I am so appreciative to because they provide a real need in this community. Sometimes it takes the ambulance service a period of time to get on scene when we have a situation of people in need of medical assistance. And they respond very quickly after our law enforcement arrives on scene and start administering aid and treating medical issues until an ambulance can arrive and transport. And we all know that that golden hour is critical to whether or not people die or suffer long-term irreparable harm. And so in visiting with the chief, the Bastrop County First Responders are asking for funding for AED devices if you were to have some kind of cardiac arrest, and then Motorola radios so that they can communicate with our first responders. All of that is huge because it benefits all of us. And if we were to be on that medical call, we would certainly want them to have that equipment. The Bastrop, Keep Bastrop County Beautiful and the Bastrop Long-Term Recovery Teams are organizations we're going to partner with. We'll be meeting with them to develop some program deliverables going forward and working in concert with us and some other things we have going on. You can anticipate seeing them on a quarterly basis along with the YMCA. We're going to invite them to come before council quarterly so that they can give an update on their programs, what they're doing, and how that's working, so that not only are y'all informed, but our community is informed as well. One program that we have included that was not submitted from an outside agency but was included by staff, and that is the BISD Student Backpack Program. It was brought to our attention that we have 300 children identified in the BISD school system that really don't eat if it weren't for school lunches. And so they leave on Friday knowing that they won't eat again until they come back to school. And the food pantry has been asked to coordinate this program on behalf of the school district. And so what is included in here is money for 100 backpacks for 35 weeks. And in addition, I have indicated to Tricia that our organization, will send volunteers to help stuff the backpacks on a Wednesday or Thursday whenever they're prepared, so that we can give back to those clearly in need and that need us the most. So that is a quick summary of BP&L. And essentially, at the conclusion, after we make those investments, they will have an ending fund balance of about 46%. I think it's 46.2%.
So what if we, and I do want to say
45.9, I'm sorry.
thank you very much for this backpack program. This has been a huge need in the school system, and I'm just so excited that we're participating in that. That is just, that's such a, I'm so happy we're doing that. So my question is, what if there's something that we disagree with, or we would rather see done differently as far as who gets what in this, in what you presented?
All mine is, ma'am, is a recommendation. I don't vote. You just need to convince two other people sitting around you to agree with you, and you can make it whatever you need it to be.
Okay, so you can imagine trying to convince two people in public to take money away from one group and give it to another. So that's not going to happen. So, I mean,
I don't know, is it?
Okay, well, I mean, I just personally would like to see some money given to the Pregnancy Resource Center. And they do some pretty amazing things, and I worked many years ago with BISD and helped implement some programs there, and there was a huge decline in pregnancies. And I feel like that organization is worthy of some additional consideration. So, I mean, I know that you're trying to implement a certain protocol for who gets what, but I just wanted to put a bid out there for them.
Well, City Manager, for the ending balance is 45.6 and it's required to be 35. That tells me that there is some portion of funds that would be available. Do you, and I apologize, Councilmember Jones, you may know, what was their original request? Do you know?
The reason I didn't fund it is they didn't come and make a pitch. And I feel like if we're going to give the public's money, that we should have been notified, whether it was in writing, video, or something, to signify that this money is important enough for you to come and explain it. For me, it's just a matter of principle, but again, I don't vote. There were two agencies that didn't come and participate, and neither of them were funded. So again, that's my recommendation, and it's nothing more than that.
And you're saying you haven't heard from either one of those?
No.
Well, would the council consider, I think they asked for $5,000, I'm not sure, but I just was, I'm going to ask now if the council would consider.
I would agree with that.
Can I get one other council member to agree with Gary and I to give $5,000 to these kiddos and the work that these people do to help these girls?
The only problem with that is if we go back and start doing this to the folks, giving money to the folks that didn't appear, then aren't we opening this up again? We gave a deadline and set ground rules for this, and now we seem to be breaking our own ground.
Council member Ennis, in all due respect, there was no requirement that they attend. But
it wouldn't be on the list if they met the deadline of June 30th. That's
they met the deadline,
application.
and there's no requirement that they participate. But everybody else felt like it was important enough to come. And to me, when you say come make your pitch to council, it's kind of important. It's implied. And so, we all have to make choices. So that was just the choice that I made. But there is no mandate. If y'all want to give them $5,000, $10,000, that is the prerogative of this council. But they didn't break a rule. It's just they didn't come.
I got you.
It's a vital resource in this community. I'll concur with Councilmember Jones and Mayor Pro Tem Schiff.
Thank you, Lyle. Appreciate that.
We will note it, and when it comes back before you, that will be included. So, thank you.
Ms. Waldron, do you have the applications over there? Can we just confirm what was the amount that they requested?
Yep.
We will confirm that, and we'll come back to it.
And then the other The other group I wanted to talk about was the literacy group that work with helping adults learning to read, and they have a partnership with BISD. They work at the library. That was a group. I mean, that they do great things for the community, help a lot of people.
That's a great catch. I thought it was in there.
I really thought it was in there, and I realized that
I
it
did
had
too.
been overlooked.
It is an oversight by my part. It is.
Because I thought we all agreed on
Yeah,
that.
the English is a second language, and they're educating the parents while
I
the
appreciate
kids are-
you catching that. It was not my intent to leave them off.
Mayor Pro Tem, I feel like I've cut you off twice. Did you want to say anything?
Just for clarification, I did not. Well, let me provide a little background information before I say this. I feel at a slight disadvantage because I don't have much in the way of history. And so what I attempted to do was to keep people whole at the same level that we had funded them last year. This year, part of our recommendation to get these funds is going to be to meet with me monthly at a roundtable discussion so that we can all come together and better educate me. It's my journey to take on the needs of the community, how we can better work together to really minister to the people that we are attempting to help here. And so what I did was look at the funding history of things past. And so the pregnancy resource that we indicated 5,000 asked for 20, but last year we funded at 6,483. So if I had made a recommendation to fund them, it would have been at the 6,483 level. So if y'all are fine with that, to be consistent, I say...
I think that would be great.
Please do that. As far as the literacy, which I left out of here...
That was 6,000 what? Or
643.
They asked for 10,000, and my calculation based on the way that we had done others that were in the 10,000 level was 5,558, but that they're new, so we can certainly offer them whatever you're comfortable with.
Well, I would like to consider, if we have the ability to offer them 10, they have been around a long time. They might be new to council, but they are just doing great things. And I really believe that us partnering with them or supporting them is very good for the community.
And I think it's one of those groups that you can pay me now or you can pay me later by paying forward here.
Yes, sir.
Educating these people so that they can be more productive in the community. I think it'll take some of the other responsibilities off of our shoulders.
And I think you did a very good job going through those, by the way.
Thank you.
I just wanted to point out a couple that I
Yes,
wanted
ma'am.
to bring to your attention. So
And
thank you, Linda.
I appreciate you doing that. So we will, in the future, make those adjustments, and we will add $6,483 for the Bastrop Pregnancy Resource Center and $10,000 for the literacy volunteers. Moving on to the Hotel-Motel Tax Fund. This is one that in early fall we will do a detailed work session with you, or perhaps even a special workshop, because there are a ton of moving parts going on, but let me hit the high points of this. We have done a tremendous strategic exercise relative to the hotel occupancy fund in recent weeks, and the high points are this. Back in July, we talked about whether or not the hotel occupancy fund would continue funding 100% of the convention center, and suggested back in July that perhaps the general fund needed to pick up a portion of that. I'm always delighted when I get really good help from citizens, and I had a citizen that really took this on as a project and provided some great information that helps us determine that that decision, because of the convention center, is based on bookings, not revenue. So as we sat down and really focused on a strategic plan for the convention center next year, we believe 50% plus one is doable on our bookings for the hotel occupancy tax. So we left the hotel occupancy tax paying 100% of the convention center. We have identified some really short-term goals. We're going to redo our contract. We're going to redo our fees. We're going to buy some inventory so that we can do some setups and do an all-inclusive fee. We're going to do some contracts with some local businesses to provide a box lunch, a buffet, and all of that just by checking the box. So we're going to make it super easy for you to come in and do a rental at the convention center. We are going to analyze next year the potential of doing a liquor license, because one of the things that Dale Lockett indicated to us that where convention centers really make their money is off food and beverage. And we don't have a catering kitchen, and we don't have a TACB license. And so we really are leaving money on the table that we need to investigate. We have created within this fund a hospitality and downtown department. And that's going to consist of the convention center and Main Street operating as a team. What we found is that we have separated funding by function, and by doing so, siloed the purpose. And so we've all agreed that that really is not the highest and best use. And so Kathy and Sarah and Dale and their team are going to be located at the Lakey House. Did I get that right? Okay. And so that's wonderful, because the synergy that's being created is we're going to be utilizing the strengths of everybody instead of assuming everybody's created equal. And so they're already saying, ooh, I'd rather do that, I'd rather do that, I love this. And I've just told them, I don't care, just get it done. And so when Sarah's got a big project, well, guess what? Kathy and Dale and their team, his team, are going to step up to the plate. When Kathy's got a big deal, then Sarah and Dale are going to step up. And so same thing with Dale, we're going to be there. So rather than working as silos, we're just one big team working toward one great purpose, and that is to bring tourism to Bastrop to shore up our sales tax. And so I'm really, really excited about all of the things that are going through that. We mentioned a minute ago in BP&L about the community festival funding, and that's going to reside in the hospitality and downtown department. And Kathy and Sarah are going to work together on that. Becky Womble, our president of the Bastrop Chamber of Commerce, and her team have been really the coordinator extraordinaire of the Patriotic Festival. And I have indicated on more than one occasion that is such a gift to us as an organization, because communities are going to celebrate July 4th regardless. So Sarah and Becky have worked together and have identified things that make sense for the Hotel Occupancy Tax Fund to pay for, things that aren't going to be covered, but this community expects, because it's July 4th, BP&L will pay for that. And then Becky, with her membership and fundraising, is going to bring a third source of revenue to the table, and collectively, Becky and her team, with our support, will put on the Patriotic Festival. The Visit Bastrop, as y'all well know, is very close to being a functional operation. On the 22nd of August, we hope to have a contract on the agenda for your review that meets with the purpose and the non-negotiables that were established at an April workshop, and then we can get busy about talking about what the DMO is doing instead of the fact we need a DMO and we're trying to get one built. And so Visit Bastrop will have their work plan to you this first year by the 1st of November. And all of this will begin to create, we hope, a synergy as we move forward to increase tourism. Bastrop Art in Public Places is a appointed board by the council. Yes, ma'am.
I just want to ask you a quick question.
Yes, ma'am.
I thought we had a meeting where we were told it's not a convention center, but it's a civic center, so.
Yes, I indicated that based on our past history, that it might make sense in the future for it to be a convention center, a civic center, because of the challenges that we have. That is setting an expectation going forward, because with the limitations that we have, that might very well be an answer. What we have pledged to you is with the coming on of Visit Bastrop, with the aggressive work plan that we're going to be doing, with the review and restructuring our rules and regulation and fees, we are going to absolutely give it our best college try to deliver revenue that makes sense under the hotel occupancy tax. As Dale reminded me when we were talking about this, we need to be measured on our effort, not our revenue, because we are going to put together a very aggressive work plan with deliverables and expectations that staff has to meet on a monthly basis. And so I will be able to tell you next year that we have done everything we could. And if it doesn't work, then we need to take that journey. So what I'm trying to do is not set myself up or you for a surprise.
Okay.
I appreciate it comes with some history. We're going to do everything we can, but at the end of the day, it is what it is. Bastrop Art in Public Places, one of the things that was identified in the comprehensive plan is the long-term strategy need for visual and performing art assets. That was a conversation during the retreat about how we need to really structure our art so that it is really tied into the strategic elements of our hotel occupancy fund. And so one of the things that I am recommending is that BAIPP create a community-wide cultural arts master plan as recommended in the comprehensive plan. And essentially what that document will become is the basis for future decisions on how art funding out of the hotel occupancy tax is spent. So that, again, it's leveraged toward the main goal.
So who prepares that report and what direction it's going to go?
Well, that's a wonderful segue to my next point. I think in order for a council-appointed board to take that journey, we need to have a joint workshop, very similar to what we did last Thursday night with planning and zoning. We need to do that with BAIPP. And that we need to have a conversation about what is the end game, what are the goals, what are the non-negotiables, what are the expectations. And then depending on how long that process takes, we may have to have a couple of more joint meetings for them to say, this is what I'm thinking, does this meet with what you're thinking? So I would tell you it would be a collaborative process, but they can't provide you any policy direction without some policy direction back. So that is going to be the next workshop that gets scheduled for you, is BAIPP. And so with that, the art purchases for the city permanent collection and the cultural heritage trail project, I'm suggesting that that be put on hold this year, pending the adoption of the plan. I know that that has caused some consternation in the community. My comment to you is this: if they get a plan done before the end of the year and y'all are ready to start spending money, we can just reallocate it. So we can do a mid-year adjustment. So it's not a situation where they've got to wait until next year. I'm just advocating we not fund it now until we have a plan so that we know what is necessary. So if March or April of next year they get a plan and they can come back, we'll do a budget amendment, we can roll on.
And my understanding is on the hot funds, there's a percentage that you're allowed for art.
Yes, ma'am. Not only is there a percentage, but there's some very clear
Not to
direction
exceed, right.
as to what that art must meet and must look like. And all of those elements need to be factored into that comprehensive plan.
When we have our joint meeting, can we have that description?
Yes, sir. I anticipate that Sarah and Dale will be the staff liaisons on that, and they will walk you through that.
Good, thanks.
Yes, sir. Any other questions on the hotel occupancy tax? The Fairview Cemetery is a perpetual care cemetery, and we have 3 items in this fund. One is a mower, because obviously the most important function that we perform in a cemetery is ground maintenance. So they have to be replaced periodically. The second item is that we've put $32,000 in the budget for ground truthing. Essentially, there are, we believe, unmarked graves in the west section of the cemetery. And this funding will allow ground truthing technology to survey half of the west section to help identify lots where unmarked graves may exist. And while we may not know who is buried there, we will be able to identify the graves and properly mark them. And it will also help us where no burials are identified to mark those lots for future sale. And then in addition to that, because this is a perpetual care cemetery, we have an obligation today to start funding the maintenance after this cemetery is built out. And the time to do that is when you still have a lot of lots for sale. And so Tracy will be working with an actuarial to come in and evaluate our situation, the cost, and future projected cost of maintaining a subdivision to help us set the appropriate fees for our lots and how to address that so that we are providing good care for the future of our cemetery.
So I see that currently there's a fund balance of $198,000, and with the things that you've described, that fund balance would go to $158,000. What I don't see is if there is a policy guideline for a reserve fund, or is there any?
There is a separate fund called a permanent care fund that is what is in and available for perpetual care, and I think it's got a little over $300,000 in it today.
But I'm asking about the Fairview Cemetery Fund. Is there any guideline for reserve at all?
I don't believe so.
Is that something we should consider doing?
Well, yes, ma'am, but I think you do that based on the actuarial study so we can see if it's feasible. This may be one of those situations where any fund balance is better spent on investing in a permanent care and just have a small budget for incidentals. There's not going to be, well, I will tell you, the maintenance out there is routine in nature. We have identified some potential capital improvement projects. There is a hill that we are seeing some significant erosion, and so in the near future, we're going to have to address that, and so that might be an expense, but I'm not sure that the cemetery fund could pay for that.
I would just ask staff to take a look at that, because I noticed that you've got policy guidelines that you're referencing on other funds, and this one doesn't have it. And while we're doing the actuarial charts and as we're moving forward, it seems to me to be a good idea to have a policy on that.
Yes, ma'am. Any other questions on the cemetery? The red light camera fund, that is a fund that is no longer receiving revenue because all of the red light cameras in town have been removed. The law is very clear on what type of programs can be funded from red light camera, and it's really for pedestrian and the motoring public safety. And so we are proposing that $152,000 improve street signage and striping. The Federal Transportation Administration, or Federal Highway Administration rather, has a code that dictates reflectivity, and the objective of that code is for the motoring public to be able to see signage and warning as well at night as they do during the day. And they just need to be replaced periodically because, as with all things, they have a life cycle. And we're at the end of the life cycle on some of our road signs. So this will allow us to do street signage as well as marking crosswalks and railroad crossings and those kinds of things. And then there is $311,000 dedicated to sidewalk connectivity. And a lot of people may say, well, what does that have to do with pedestrian safety? Well, shortly after I arrived here, we had a lady come to citizen input who was pregnant and had been struck while walking her small child in a stroller by a motorist because she was walking on the street. And so, to me, sidewalk connectivity is the best way to help our pedestrians be safe. And so, Trey made a presentation back in June on the connectivity that we'll be doing to ensure that we've got connectivity through downtown and to our major parks, because on that particular day, that's where she was walking, was to take her child to the park. So this fund, at the conclusion of that, will have $25,000 remaining in it, and that is being left because the city, along with about 53 other cities around the state, have been sued in a class action lawsuit along with the state of Texas, questioning the constitutionality of red light cameras, period. And so we are in a coalition of cities that have hired an attorney to represent us, and very clearly he has indicated that this will probably go all the way to the Texas Supreme Court, but he did not have any discomfort with us going ahead and investing these funds in the community.
May I ask you a question?
Yes, ma'am.
I really want us to look at how we plan on building the pedestrian bridges to finish the connection of the trail, the park trail that we're going to be taking from the city to the state park. And so that, to me, what I'm understanding is that we're going to be looking at a pedestrian bridge over 95 and a bridge over 150. Is that right? And maybe I'm really getting ahead here, but
it's over 95. It will cross over 95 on 150. Is that correct?
No, not.
There will be two?
Two.
That's not part of the current.
No, it's
design,
not part of the current. But I just want it to be something that we keep in mind.
Yes.
Because it's an issue. You know, I mean, I'll try and cross the road, but I wouldn't want to do it with a bunch of little kids, you know.
It would definitely be safer with
But I just wanted to keep in mind any sort of creative ways that we can think of getting funds to create a pedestrian bridge, maybe partnering with TxDOT, using art funds out of, you know, bid for proposal for an artistic bridge. I don't know, but just some ways. I just want us to keep it in mind for the future. And I realize it's not part of the plan, but I just wanted to throw that out there.
That's a good point. I was just talking about that yesterday and
Yeah.
talking about the trails. How are we going to get across 95?
Because everyone seems to agree that this is just a great plan, and that's kind of one little key that we need to think about.
Yes, ma'am. And we will, I think in the work plan next year, Wesley is working on the design of the state park, and I know that as TxDOT continues their construction projects, there will be an opportunity to debate that, and we will certainly do that. The proposed drainage fund is one that we are recommending for adoption. Yes, sir.
We can approve this red light camera funding through adoption of the budget, right?
Yes, sir.
Doesn't have to be voted on separately.
No, sir.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yes, sir. The proposed drainage fund, we are recommending adoption in October and not as a part of the budget process to give us appropriate time for public input. And we are in the process of scheduling 5 budget 5 public hearings or public meetings on the Drainage Fund. And they are going to be September 25th, September 27th, September 28th, October 2nd, and October 3rd. Those dates will be listed in a newsletter that will go citywide to everybody we provide meter service to that would be affected by this fee. The locations will be, we haven't got all of them worked out, or I would give them to you tonight, but one of them will be at the BP&L office for the north side. One will be at the Kerr Center. One will be at Best Western Hotel in their conference room for the folks in Hunter's Crossing. We're working on trying to get the Riverside Grove Elementary School. And the 5th one is Tahitian, thank you, Fire Station number 2.
We don't have an elementary school at Riverside.
Well, it's
Or you mean
intermediate.
Middle school?
Intermediate school.
Intermediate school? Did nobody like my idea of putting up tents at intersections? Because I volunteered to do that, to get any sort of drive-by.
We can do that spontaneously, and we'll absolutely take you up on that. I'm just trying to get the stuff
agree.
that we've got to print in the newsletter, but yes, ma'am.
So we can absolutely get
Yes,
those
ma'am.
people driving to work, but I volunteer to do that early in the morning or late in the afternoon.
And I think that is a
Can we put a
creative,
sandwich board on you?
Yes.
I want the picture.
No, I was actually going to get Connie to wear the sandwich board.
but I do think that is a great idea in a creative way. And so at the end of the day, I want people to be well educated on the drainage fee.
Would you run down those dates again?
It's going to be the 25th, 27th, and 28th of September, and October 2nd and 3rd. And all of them are being scheduled at 7 o'clock to give people time that commute back and forth to get back into town.
Thank you.
Ms. Humble, I have 2 questions.
Yes,
One,
ma'am.
You've referenced a meter. What kind of meter, I have been asked? Is this a water meter? Is this an electric meter?
It
What
is
meter?
a water meter, and essentially, if you are a residential customer, it will be $3.75 per meter, and if you are a commercial account, it's $7.50 per service unit equivalent, and a 3/4 inch meter is 1 service unit equivalent. So if you are a residential user, the fee would be $3.75 per water meter. And in the context of this plan, and I'm not going to spend just a ton of time on the detail because we're going to send out a very detailed newsletter. We are working on a video. I have asked all of you if you have an interest. Several of you have taken me up on that, and Colin is working on that. So we'll have a video that will be shown on our cable channel. Will be broadcast on Facebook. We'll show it at the meetings. We'll answer specific questions, and then we'll have opportunities in October at the first and second meeting when the ordinances are read to have additional public comment and presentations at that time. So best I can tell, we will have talked about this at 3 budget workshops, 5 public meetings, and 2 council meetings. So we will have worked very hard to ensure everybody is aware of it, the purpose, the point, the benefits, and the expectations.
And then when would you expect that fee to start showing up on their bills? Assuming it is adopted?
Ms. Waldron will tell me imminently, but is it their November bill or December bill?
If it gets adopted, it'll probably be the one that goes out at the end of October.
Okay. Okay, we'll
Yes,
be
ma'am.
asked that, and I want to be clear about that.
Good questions. At this time, this concludes the the funds that we have talked about. And if there are no other questions, I would like to move into the Innovation Fund and let staff make presentations on the things that we have identified. Specifically, we're going to talk about the record management system and the CAD system that I refer to as RMS. Chief Adcock's going to talk about that. Also is going to do a presentation on the equipment for the council chambers. Trey has a presentation on the additional mowing that we're going to do for the city facilities and right-of-way mowing, and then as well as the pavement condition index study. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to them. And if there anything else in the Innovation Fund you have specific questions to, staff is present and available to answer your questions.
Thank you. What I wanted to go over was our records management system that we were asking for. What this is more than anything is a public safety issue. I put together a short little PowerPoint to try to explain it, and if y'all have any questions at any time, please ask. The police department has been using the current records management system since 1998. While it meets the needs for report writing, the safety factor and redundancy of data input is lagging far behind. And I've got a list in a minute that'll show you all of this. By switching over to a new records management system compatible to the county dispatch system, officer safety will be enhanced. Our officers will be more efficiently utilize their time, and response time will be reduced. Basically what this is our officers are divided up into two different districts, east and west, and the day shift does have a rover. Let's say, for instance, we get a call, and the call is on this side of the bridge. We may have the officer that's stationed on that side of the bridge real close to the call, but because dispatch can't see exactly where we're at all times, to a certain extent, they're just going to dispatch out whoever is assigned to that district, either east or west district. With this CAD system, just because an officer is assigned to the west district and the call is on the east district, if they see that officer is 3 blocks away compared to the actual officer that's assigned to that district, maybe 5 blocks or 8 blocks away, they will dispatch the closest officer to that scene. Another thing is, right now, presently, dispatch, all the information that we have to, that we get is from dispatch talking to us over the radio, because they can't download all the information to our system because we don't have a system. The deputies do. The deputies, there's anywhere from 5 to 10 deputies out at any given time, and presently, none of the deputies can see where any of us are at. We can't see where any of them are at. So by us going to this system, we'll see where all the deputies are. They'll see where we're at all times. So if we ever have any kind of issue come up, they'll be able to come to us. We'll be able to go to them. Obviously, in a little bit more rural area, we rely on the sheriff's department greatly. They rely on us too. So that's the safety aspect of it. The redundancy part is presently, because we're not on the same records management system, if when we get a call, there's a lot of information that dispatch types in. For a deputy, because they have the same system, they can download and dump it all into the records management system, and therefore it automatically auto-fills into their reports. So that way they don't have to go back and retype a lot of stuff. For us, none of that works. With this system, it will now eliminate a lot of the redundancy, and so a lot of this stuff is already going to be auto-populated. Let's see what I didn't. This system is also a Tyler system, which encode, which is what the whole city uses. I think the whole city. It's going to be the court system. Presently, they already use it in finance. So it'll be all one system, so we'll be able to integrate with all of the other stuff from the city as a whole. This system is also going to have different crime data statistics that we can pull up. Our present system We have to manipulate some stuff. It's not 100% accurate. We could, if the city manager asked me to do some hot spots on crime, we're going to get pretty close. This system, we're going to be able to do a lot more, run a lot more reports, find where a lot of the hot spots are, figure out where we need to deploy our officers at what time of the day or the night. So it's a lot more robust. The system also, because it will probably handle us. It's hard to project, but I would say probably for the next 8 to 10 years, projecting how our growth rate. So this is not a system that is going to be a short-term fix. We've been working with the county judge. We've got a meeting Wednesday to go over some other stuff. So at this point, it looks like it's going to be a great system for us and for the county. If I left anything else. I think I covered everything. Do y'all have any questions of me over any of this?
So to be clear, with this system, we're actually partnering with the county. We're cooperating with the county. I mean, it's just,
Absolutely.
I think it's pretty impressive that this is the direction we're going to go. Because I know at one point we were thinking about doing our own system, but this is great. So thank you.
Mm-hmm. One of the challenges, and you can appreciate the inherent conflict that's created, that dispatch is limited because they're managing who knows what, and having to give our officers what they need over the radio versus just hitting a button and downloading a tremendous amount of information to them. So some of the issues that were created that had us asking, should we be standalone, I think this will go a long way to helping resolve that. And if not, now the chief has got specific information he can pull from that can help better manage that. So as I have indicated to Judge Poppy, we've got to be a good partner before we can ask them to be a good partner. And we have put them at a distinct disadvantage to serve us without this element.
Another thing is Smithfield. This system, they're going to allow us to allow Smithfield to be on the same system. It's not going to cost them more than what they're spending now. So we're also actually partnering with Smithfield as well. When everything goes south, we're going to help Smithfield. They're coming to help us, just like the sheriff's department. So it's great that we're partnering a lot more with the sheriff's department and Smithfield as well.
So by partnering with Smithfield, does it create a discount for us that allowing them to be part of that, or is it just still the same for us, but then?
No, actually, yes, a little bit. What's going to happen is the fee was the same. This was an afterthought, and we asked them, hey, can we allow Smithfield to jump on board with this? And they said, absolutely. The fee's the same. However, what we're going to do is Smithfield, what they were presently paying, what they've been paying in the past for their maintenance of their system, they're now going to pay us. So our maintenance each year won't be quite so high. So we will get a little bit less.
Okay, good.
It's not going to cost Smithfield any more than what they're presently paying, though, and it's a greatly advanced system compared to what they had.
And then we get a little bit of benefit to maintain that.
Correct.
For
Yes.
them. That's great.
Yes, ma'am, it is.
We're excited.
Great. When will this happen?
As soon as you approve the budget.
We've been working on it. We're ready to pull the trigger.
They have a quote. I just need to be authorized to sign it. I mean, literally, they are working very diligently. So the minute that this budget is adopted, Steve will execute and hit the launch code.
My opinion is we've needed this kind of technology for a long time.
Yes.
What else you got?
Thank you. That's all of mine.
No. Yes. I consider Andreas yours. So.
Okay, we're going to talk about the upgrade for here at the council chambers. We're going to do we're calling it Boat Links. That's just the company's name. I think Gary's the one that kind of turned us on to this company. They do everything, and so we're going to look at doing an audio upgrade. We're going to go to a higher level audio mixer, 2-channel, and then we're going to get it professionally installed. So instead of the IT guy trying to run cables, we're going to get somebody to actually do it.
And that should help some of the sound questions and concerns that we get from the audience.
Yes, yeah, we're going to get all this fixed, replaced, so that we can actually project the sound better than what we're doing right now.
What?
Yes, sir. Coming with the audio comes vote links, which is actually their voting and tracking and their meeting management. It controls the audio in the presentations. It's all touch screen. It displays the vote results after the meeting or after the vote has been tallied up. And I'll show you the panels here in just a second. The vote tracking, this will capture the individual votes and display them on a live stream, on our live stream that we're sending out, as well as on displays here in the council chambers. And so that's kind of what it'll look like. It'll show each of the council members and what their vote was. And so you'll have a panel here in front of you, and you'll hit yes, no, or abstain, and then we'll put that out for us to capture it. And then the city secretary will get those results, and then it'll be part of the minutes. So we'll have that. That'll be coming part of it. The presentation timer, I know we currently, Gary holds up 30 seconds and all that. We are actually going to put this, it's a bigger version of this. It's going to be up above the seal here, and then there'll be one on the podium as well. There's 2 of them. It'll count down, and the mayor will control it from a touch screen that's similar to this. She'll tap the touch screen and give them their minutes, and then it'll start the countdown. And then as soon as it's done, the mic will immediately stop, and the mayor won't have to control, and so they'll move on to the next one. And so
Will
it's
there
all,
be a trap door that opens? And,
it's kind of similar, and then as well as the mayor will have control of the meeting. She'll have a little touch screen in front of her, and she'll be able to control the different aspects of the audio. So,
will the voting be displayed anywhere?
Yeah, we're going to display it up here on this screen for now, and then we've got built in the budget different phases. We're going to plan on replacing this screen with some TV screens in the future, as well as doing some of the sound dampening, putting up some more of these panels that are up here and creating a better atmosphere in here. But this is the first phase that we're going to do.
But I think part of what Councilmember Ennis is asking is if you're watching at home, you'll be able to tell what the vote was.
Yeah, you'll see this
right?
exact screen right here. So this exact screen, it'll have each one of your names and then what your vote was. And then it'll show what the agenda item was. We'll put those in there. And so it'll show the agenda item and then what your vote was and what the motion was that was due. We'll have to, the city secretary will have a little training. She'll have to type these in as we go. So, any questions? No? Okay.
I might add, I don't know whether you mentioned, it also has the ability for the council members to log in when they want to speak, and it puts you in a queue so that you don't have to try screaming over somebody else to get attention. You're going to get attention. The mayor will have a list of who wanted to speak in what order, and she can just go down the list. And I think that's a great feature.
Yeah, this is what the mayor will see. Let me see if I can get this to show here. This is what the mayor will see. She'll do a request to speak, and as each person presses their button, it will pop up, and then she'll give them the right to speak, and then it'll go down the line as they go. And then on the members. It'll pop up and say, hey, you're ready. It lights for you to let you know it's your turn. And so that way you don't leave somebody out or forget. Yes. So, yeah. And it's also time control. We can turn the timer off, but I think it comes with a timer. So. All right. Trey, you ready?
Thanks, Andre. This is great. Oh, man. Oh, that's kind of hard.
Gary was suggesting I could be replaced with software. That's what he was.
So tonight I thought we'd talk a little bit about right-of-way mowing.
And y'all do pay attention to the funding.
It is very funny.
It is funny.
Yes, let's do it the right-of-way. So we talked a little bit about our tour in the past, the last budget shops, and how staff went and viewed everything in the blue toilet, and everybody's familiar with the story. So again, the point of that was to talk about the curb appeal. So this is some ideas that we've been talking about for community development, and we think right-of-way mowing, it just enhances that, and it also helps with other things, as you'll see as we click through. So one of the most important things, right-of-way mowing, why is it important? For traffic safety. As you can see, a well-maintained right-of-way allows you better visibility of signage for curbs and
trash removal.
Trash removal, that's correct. Also, an important thing to point out is there may be some tree removal in the right-of-way, because a tree is, they're important to our infrastructure and our complete streets, but we also need to make sure the location and where they're at. So some trees may have to be removed because they're also something that it's a fixed object and it doesn't move. So another thing that was important, and that's proper sight triangles. They've got to be maintained, and especially at a greater rate of speed. Another important part of mowing and maintaining the right-of-way, if you can see, is the drainage. If you look at the top picture, where there's a puddle, that absolutely can shorten the life of a roadway. And when we talk about the types of mowing that you'll see, one will be safety mowing, making sure the signs and traffic control devices and guardrails are visible. Good sight distance. We're going to talk about transition mowing, and then we'll talk about contour and select mowing. So what that might look like is selective and contour mowing, maybe along the slopes of the highway or somewhere that we do weekly on a constant basis for landscaping and maintenance purposes. Safety mowing, if you'll look, this is Farm Street across Highway 95 and Cedar Street, and you'll see how the signs have been mowed around and the ditches get cleaned up and things of that nature, and that's going to be done on more of a monthly basis or as needed, just to make sure that we have good sight alignment and you're able to see all the traffic control devices. Now we've talked about increasing our mowing, and since then we've written an RFP and taken out for bid and improving our overall look. And these are the areas where you'll see additional mowing, and that's from city limits, State Highway 21 from 95 all the way to city limits east, just up past the TxDOT office. State Highway 95, 71 to the northern Bastrop limit. Again, you see we'll take care of all the TxDOT right away. I won't read through the whole thing. There's also sections of unopened right away that we need to go in, clear, maintain, and then decide what we're going to do with it. We're going to take that off the inventory, let the adjoining property owners buy it, take it over, or something of that nature. We also really want to focus on some high traffic areas as part of that aesthetics and the curb appeal that we've been talking about. And for instance, Union Pacific right away. I'm sure everybody's familiar with this rail yard here at the spur, just right across the street, and then just cleaning up what it looks like along the sides all the way down, just to make sure we have a good, clean, nice look. What you're getting for your dollar has some curb appeal, safety, improved road maintenance, crime prevention by environmental design. That'll slow down your tagging and things of that nature, so the nicer something looks, the less likely people are to graffiti or something of that nature on it. It'll build capacity in your existing workforce by using contract labor to mow existing facilities. It frees up the manpower to work in the parks or the other areas that you needed. They need a little extra attention. And currently we'll be supplementing with 24 cuttings a year by a contractor if you approve this budget. Any questions?
Mayor and Council, I do want to emphasize that this funding does not get us to a final level. It's a starting point. What Trey is going to do is to put these roads in an RFP or a bid, and we're going to ask for price per mow. And then, depending on the area, it may get mowed once a week, once every 2 weeks, or once a month. And we're just going to have to play it by ear. But I don't want people to have an expectation that now that we're doing this, everything's going to be manicured to the ultimate goal, because that is not at all. This is supplemental. We're still going to have to do mowing, but we won't have to do as much as we were to allow us to not have to be in such an either-or situation, because when we right-of-way mow, we don't do much in the parks. And so what this is going to allow us to do is something other than mowing in the parks. But it's not the end game as to what will be needed. We'll be coming back every year asking for some additional funding until we can figure out how to get this permanently built into the tax rate.
Are we going to be looking at maybe any adoption programs where businesses can come in and adopt a corner or an area, kind of like TxDOT does? Or?
For trash removal?
I was thinking about landscaping.
Actually, we are interested in partnering with the Department of Justice, the Bureau of Prisons. We have a prison here in town, and I am extremely impressed with the program that is run at our prison. They have 4 programs where they work hard to give the inmates an opportunity to learn life skills so that they have employment opportunities. And one of the programs that they have is landscaping. And so the chief, the mayor, and I, and Assistant Chief Altgill go every quarter out to the prison to have a conversation about how we can partner and hear what they're doing. And they have a work program where they want to be good neighbors. And so we've talked to them about a number of our landscaping opportunities, particularly at some of the TxDOT entrances. They were very excited about that, and we indicated as soon as we could get through with the budget that we would go back and visit with them, because this gives those folks an opportunity to do this work, take pictures, and then be able to point when they get out as far as work that they've actually done. And these will obviously be prisoners on good behavior. The warden has been very clear. They don't want a black eye, so they're going to make sure that it's a well-run program. But the great thing is that they bring outside teachers in. So these are actual skills. And so we're looking forward to partnering with them from a design and implementation.
So I just also want to throw this out there, and because I know I've worked with other prisoners in the past, and we might just want to think about the opportunity of them even implementing some projects, art projects, but anyway, something to throw out there.
There are 4 programs that they run at the prison. They do a lot of installation of equipment in the entire federal fleet. It's really impressive the number of vehicles, particularly Border Patrol, that run in and out of our prison unit, that they install equipment. They have the landscaping program. They have a culinary arts program, and they cook our meal every time we're there, and it is top shelf. In fact, we had some really good fried chicken the last time that they were there. I mean, whoever's doing that's got an art for it. And then they also have an HVAC mechanical program for building maintenance. So these are all usable skills that these folks, regardless of where they live, these are skills that are very hireable. And it's impressive the participation rate that they have with that. So we're really excited about partnering, and clearly the prison is very excited about partnering with us.
Trey, I have a question. Yes, sir. The state has some obligation to maintain their right-of-way. How is that coordinated with our initiative?
The state, we have a maintenance agreement. We're going to bring another one back to you, not as part of this budget, but to adopt. Currently, I would say it's an unfunded mandate, but the state, all over the state, they're giving back the roads into maintenance to the smaller cities. So there's some things that they take care of, signage, traffic lighting, things of that nature, but we'll handle the mowing and maintenance. So we'll talk about a pavement condition index. And again, as part of our journey that we've all taken together over the last few months, we talked about our strengths and weaknesses and our opportunities. But I want to talk about what a pavement condition assessment is. And basically, it's a scientific analysis of your pavement condition, and it uses two primary performance indices. And one is your distress score and your condition score. And basically what that means is your distress score is how many potholes are there, how many cracks are in the road, you know, how bad are they, things of that nature. And are there any other outside items that influence, such as drainage, utility trenches, or damage that's beyond normal wear and tear. They also talk about the condition of the pavement index, which has to do with the roughness. Pavement itself, asphalt, is actually smoother than concrete. And depending on the thickness, it's actually much smoother, so you get a higher rating and things of that nature. They take those numbers together and they come up with a grade. You get somewhere in the neighborhood of an F to an A plus, pretty much. What that allows us to do is start building a map for a comprehensive road maintenance plan. It'll also, again, allow us to allocate a score with a true standard that's used all over the state and the Federal Highway Federation Association. So what we'll do is we'll perform this pavement assessment. We'll set the goals and expectations, and then we'll break down the task and the timeline, and we'll start talking about budget and future planning and things of that nature. So what happens once we get that score? We basically come back and we get a to-do list. We set some smart and manageable goals that we can handle. You know, we learn where the who, what, when, and where, and how we're going to schedule these things out. It's good to get this. Once we get this established, it'll give us a footing to a good stable base to build a plan. And now that our goals are set, then we'll start to develop that maintenance plan like we talked about. Again, we'll do capital maintenance, and it all ties back to the comprehensive plan and coming up with that cross section for our arterial, our collector streets, and our thoroughfares. And to recap on everything we just went through, it provides a good digital inventory that we currently don't have. It scores all the city streets using a scientific standard. It's not just a guess, or doesn't matter where we live or who we are. It helps staff prioritize. It provides needed information to develop a maintenance plan, so we can start spending $2 today versus $10 in the future. Provides information for capital planning and allocates resources where they need to go. So I'll take any questions with that.
If I remember correctly, this is included on the comprehensive plan as one of the recommendations.
It is included.
Mayor and Council, that concludes the presentations that we had earmarked for the Innovation Fund. However, we are prepared to answer any questions on any of the other programs that are listed, should you have any questions. That concludes our program for the budget workshop, ma'am.
The city manager and staff, again, thank you so much. It's very evident the work at the time and the energy and effort that's gone into this. It's well thought out. I think as we move forward with work plans year on year, it's going to be very, very easy to know where we are and what the goal is and where we'll be by the next year. I don't see any, I see people taking notes, which is great, but do you guys like last chance for questions or anything that you would like them to discuss?
Good job. Thank you all very much. Thank you very much.
Okay, we're 8:08. We're adjourned, and I will remind you that we will be back here tomorrow at 6:30. Thank you very much for your time.